The rain was coming down in sheets as I drove home, each drop a tiny hammer blow against the windshield, mirroring the pounding in my chest. I'm Alaric, and until last Tuesday I thought I had the perfect life. I was 43, worked as a software engineer in Seattle, a job I loved, and I was married to the most beautiful woman in the world, or so I thought. Her name is Bronte. We'd been together for 15 years, married for 10. We had a cozy house in the suburbs, a golden retriever named Max, and a life that from the outside looked idyllic. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Bronte, who had always been an open book, started keeping her phone glued to her hand. She'd flinch if I came too close, quickly minimizing whatever was on the screen. She started working late more often, supposedly on a big project at her marketing firm. I didn't think much of it at first. She was ambitious and driven, and I admired that about her. But then came the weekends she was too tired to do anything, the way she'd pull away when I tried to kiss her, the faint scent of a cologne that wasn't mine clinging to her clothes. I'm not a jealous man by nature. I trusted Bronte implicitly. But these little things started to gnaw at me, planting seeds of doubt in my mind. I tried to talk to her about it, but she'd brush it off, telling me I was being paranoid, that I needed to trust her more. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but the feeling wouldn't go away. Then came the night of the company gala. Bronte had been looking forward to it for weeks, had even bought a new dress, a stunning red gown that made her look like a goddess. I was excited too. It was a chance to dress up, mingle with her colleagues, and have a nice evening out. But as the night wore on, I noticed Bronte spending an awful lot of time talking to a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, handsome, with a confident smile and eyes that lingered a little too long on my wife. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that I was just being insecure. But every time I looked over, there they were, laughing, whispering, their body language far too intimate for mere colleagues. Finally, I decided to walk over and introduce myself. As I approached, I heard him say, "I've been wanting to do that all night." Bronte giggled, and then they both turned to see me standing there. "Oh, Alaric, this is Julian," Bronte said, her voice a little too bright, a little too forced. "He's a new VP at the firm." Julian extended his hand, his grip firm, his eyes cold. "Pleasure to meet you, Alaric. Bronte has told me so much about you." I forced a smile, but my heart was pounding in my chest. The rest of the evening was a blur. I tried to act normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next morning, after Bronte had left for work, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know the truth. I knew it was wrong, a violation of her privacy, but I couldn't stop myself. I went into her office and opened her laptop. It was password protected, but I knew her password. It was our anniversary date. I typed it in, my hands shaking, and waited for the screen to unlock. I went straight to her email. There were dozens of messages from Julian, each one more intimate than the last. He called her his secret desire, his forbidden fruit. He wrote about how he couldn't wait to be alone with her, how he longed to feel her touch. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The world seemed to spin around me, the room blurring at the edges. I scrolled further down, my heart sinking with each new message. There were photos too, images that seared themselves into my brain. Bronte and Julian kissing, Bronte and Julian holding hands, Bronte and Julian. I couldn't look anymore. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands trembling. I stumbled out of the office, gasping for air, feeling like I was drowning. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, wandering around the house like a ghost. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't think. All I could see were those images, those words, those stolen moments between my wife and another man. When Bronte came home that evening, I was waiting for her. "We need to talk," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. She looked at me, her eyes wide with apprehension. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I know about Julian," I said, watching her face crumble. "I read your email." She didn't deny it. She couldn't. The guilt was written all over her face. "Alaric," she started, but I cut her off. "How could you?" I asked, my voice rising. "How could you do this to me, to us?" She started to cry, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know," she sobbed. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far, didn't mean for it to go this far," I repeated, incredulous. "You were sleeping with him, Bronte. That's about as far as it can go." She tried to explain, to justify her actions, but I couldn't hear it. All I could hear was the sound of my heart breaking, the shattering of my dreams. I told her to leave, to get out of my house. She begged me to forgive her, to give her another chance, but I was done. The trust was gone, the love was gone, everything was gone. She left that night, taking a suitcase full of clothes and a lifetime of memories. I watched her drive away, the taillights of her car disappearing into the darkness, and I felt a sense of emptiness I had never known before. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't function. I called in sick to work, spending my days wandering around the house, replaying the events of the past few months in my head, trying to understand what had gone wrong. I talked to my friends, my family, my therapist, but nothing seemed to help. The pain was too deep, the wound too fresh. Then one day I realized that I couldn't let this consume me. I couldn't let Bronte's betrayal define me. I had to move on, to rebuild my life, to find happiness again. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew I could do it. I started by focusing on myself. I went back to work, threw myself into my projects, and started exercising again. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and started exploring new hobbies. I even started dating again, cautiously, tentatively, but dating nonetheless. It wasn't long before I met someone new, a woman named Isolde. She was kind, intelligent, and beautiful, but more importantly, she was honest and trustworthy. We started slowly, taking our time to get to know each other, building a foundation of trust and respect. With Isolde, I felt safe, secure, and loved. I felt like I could finally breathe again. But even as I found happiness with Isolde, I couldn't shake the feeling that Bronte had gotten away with it. She had cheated on me, broken my heart, and then simply walked away, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I knew I couldn't let it go. I needed to confront her, to make her understand the pain she had caused. I called her one day, a few months after she had left. She sounded surprised to hear from me, her voice hesitant, almost apologetic. I told her I wanted to meet, to talk. She agreed, and we arranged to meet at a coffee shop near her office. When I saw her, I was shocked. She looked terrible. Her eyes were bloodshot, her skin pale, her hair dull. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Alaric," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Bronte," I replied, my voice cold. We sat in silence for a moment, the tension between us thick and suffocating. Finally, I broke the silence. "I wanted to know why," I said. "Why did you do it?" She looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting nervously. "I don't know," she said. "I was bored, I guess. I felt like I was missing out on something. Julian made me feel alive, desirable," I repeated, incredulous. "I made you feel desirable. I loved you, Bronte. I would have done anything for you, I know," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "And I am so sorry, Alaric. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake." "A mistake," I said, my voice rising. "You destroyed our marriage, Bronte. You broke my heart. That's not a mistake, that's a deliberate act of betrayal." She started to cry, her body shaking with sobs. I know," she said. "I deserve everything that's happening to me." "What do you mean?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and told me everything. After she left me, she had moved in with Julian, thinking they would live happily ever after. But it wasn't long before she realized she had made a terrible mistake. Julian was controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. He isolated her from her friends and family, criticized her appearance, and constantly belittled her. He even started seeing other women, flaunting his affairs in front of her. She tried to leave him, but he wouldn't let her. He threatened to ruin her career, to expose her affair to her colleagues, to make her life a living hell. She was trapped, miserable, and alone. As she spoke, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt vindicated, like she was finally getting what she deserved. But another part of me felt sorry for her. I had loved her once, deeply and passionately, and it pained me to see her in so much pain. "I'm so sorry, Alaric," she said, her voice choked with tears. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me." I looked at her, her face etched with regret and despair, and I knew that I couldn't hold on to my anger any longer. I had to let it go for my own sake. "I forgive you, Bronte," I said, my voice soft. "But that doesn't mean we can be together again. What you did was unforgivable." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand," she said. "I don't expect you to take me back. I just wanted you to know that I am sorry." We sat in silence for a few more minutes, then I stood up to leave. As I walked away, I turned back and looked at her one last time. She was still sitting there, her head in her hands, sobbing. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but I knew that I had made the right decision. I couldn't spend my life with someone I couldn't trust, someone who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I walked out of the coffee shop into the sunshine and took a deep breath. The air felt clean and fresh, and for the first time in a long time I felt free. I had survived Bronte's betrayal and I had come out stronger on the other side. I had found love again and I was finally ready to move on with my life. But the story doesn't end there. A few weeks later, I received a call from Bronte's former colleague, a woman named Guinevere. She had always been friendly to me, and I was surprised to hear from her. She told me that Julian had been fired from the company for his inappropriate behavior with Bronte and other female employees. It turned out that Bronte wasn't his first affair. He had a history of using his position to prey on vulnerable women. Guinevere also revealed that Bronte had been struggling financially since leaving me. Julian had promised her the world, but he had quickly drained her savings and left her with nothing. She was now working a low-paying job and living in a small apartment, barely scraping by. I felt a mix of emotions upon hearing this news. On one hand, I was glad that Julian had been held accountable for his actions. On the other hand, I couldn't help but feel sorry for Bronte. She had made a series of bad choices, and now she was paying the price. Then Guinevere dropped a bombshell. She told me that Bronte was pregnant with Julian's child. She had found out shortly after I confronted her about the affair, but she had been too ashamed to tell me. She was now facing the prospect of raising a child on her own, with no support from Julian. I was stunned. I couldn't believe that Bronte had kept such a huge secret from me. I felt betrayed all over again, even though we were no longer together. I realized that she had never truly been honest with me, that she had always been hiding something. I spent the next few days wrestling with what to do. Part of me wanted to wash my hands of Bronte and move on with my life. But another part of me felt a sense of responsibility towards her, especially now that she was carrying a child. I knew that she was in a difficult situation, and I couldn't bear the thought of her struggling alone. Finally, I made a decision. I called Bronte and offered to help her. I told her that I would pay for her medical expenses and provide her with financial support until she got back on her feet. I also offered to be there for the child, to be a positive influence in his or her life, even though I wasn't the father. Bronte was overwhelmed with gratitude. She thanked me profusely, her voice choked with tears. She promised to pay me back as soon as she could, but I told her that it wasn't necessary. I just wanted to help her and the child. I know that some people might think I'm crazy for helping Bronte after everything she put me through. They might say that I'm a fool, that I'm letting her take advantage of me. But I don't see it that way. I believe that everyone deserves a second chance, even Bronte. And I believe that it's my responsibility to help those in need, especially when a child is involved. I'm not saying that I've completely forgiven Bronte. What she did was wrong, and it will always be a part of our history. But I've come to realize that holding onto anger and resentment only hurts me in the long run. I've chosen to let go of the past and focus on the future. I'm excited about my life with Isolde, and I'm committed to being the best possible role model for Bronte's child. Life is full of surprises, both good and bad. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we react to it. I've learned that forgiveness is a powerful tool, and that even the most painful experiences can lead to growth and healing. And I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned, even the ones that came at a great cost.